Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This video is not exactly going to be a tutorial. I wasn't happy with how the final pattern turned out. I will add some bits of the pattern down below, like for the ribbing and for the colorwork chart, but I'm not completely happy with it, so the full pattern isn't going to be there. If you still want to watch, keep on watching. So initially I knew that I wanted to do rainbow ribbing and trim on the jumper, so I just gathered up all the colors I could find. Now not all of this is the same weight, some of it's thinner, so I had to double up on it. And here is the initial sketch. Besides the problems that I had, it stays pretty true to what I was trying to go for, so that makes me happy. I'm going to show you the parts that I was happy with. So this is the ribbing at the bottom of the jumper. So to start off, you're going to chain 9. Then to start off, you're going to single crochet in every chain across the row. Now that you've done that first initial row, we're going to only single crochet in the front loops of every single row, and that's what's going to get you that ribbing texture. So for this pattern, I had 10 colors and I needed it to be 20 inches wide. So approximately I did each color for 8 rows. In order to change color, you're going to end off at the last stitch on the 8th row and you're going to pull up a loop, but then you're going to cut the yarn and you're going to pull through your 2 loops with your new color. So I hate sewing in ends, and in order to get away with this, I tie both the ends together and then I crochet around it so that it gets embedded in this first new row in my new color. you come to the end of the row, all you have to do is clip your 2 pieces of yarn, and then I just stretch it out a little bit so that the 2 ends get hidden. So now you're just going to keep repeating this process until you reach your desired length, and like I said, for me that was 20 inches and 10 colors. Now that the ribbing is long enough, you're going to pick up stitches along the side and make sure that the ribbing is facing the side that you want on the front. So all I'm doing here is making a little slip knot and then pulling up a loop, and I'm going to single crochet in every row of the ribbing, and since I did 80 rows, that'll give me 80 stitches. Here again, you can see that I'm crocheting around all my ends so that I don't have to sew them in later. This mostly works if your ends are the same color, but sometimes, like if you're doing red and your end is white, it might poke through if there's a stark contrast, so just be aware of that. Now that we've picked up all those stitches, what I did was I chained 2, turned the work, and then I started working in half double crochet, because half double crochet is a little bit less structural, it's a little more loose, and it saves a bit of time because it's taller. Now once I had 3 inches of plain half double crochet is when I started contemplating the color. This is an error, I should have done more than that, trust me, unless you want something really cropped. So this is me starting the smiley face. So you pull up a loop as you would any half double crochet, but then you end it by pulling through with your new color. And you have to do that every single time that you change colors. So for the last stitch of the new color, you do the same thing. You pull up a loop, and then I'm using a second ball of white because you can't drag it all the way across your motif. So I'm using a new ball, and then I'm adding it by pulling it through the last stitch. And of course I tie those ends later in the back, but for now they're just hanging loose, and then I continue on my merry little way. Now coming back to it on the other side, you're going to do the same thing. In the last stitch that you want of the color is when you're going to add the new stitch. And here I'm just dragging it across because it's quite a big distance. You just want to make sure that if you're doing that, you make sure it's really loose, because if it's tight, it can pull at the stitches and it's not going to look great. You want to make sure that you're always keeping all your yarns on the back side of the work, and later when you're changing colors, you want to twist them just so that there's not any gaps in the stitches. Now I'm going to start adding the little black bits like the mouth and the eyes. It's the same thing as any other color work, except usually I just cut off pieces of string because you don't need very much for those small little areas. And I don't like drag them along because the black is very stark contrast from the yellow and you don't want it to like stand out in the back of the work. Instead of dragging the yellow all the way across, here I'm crocheting around it, which is something you can do if there's a short little gap where you need to pull the yarn across but you don't want to. And that actually turned out to work really well. But of course, like I said, it only works because it's yellow on yellow. If it was another color, it might show through. And zooming forwards, this is the finished smiley face. It is a tad bit elongated because I did half double crochet instead of single crochet, but I think it still translates pretty well. To make the sleeve, I made another ribbing, but I decided to use a slightly smaller hook just so it would be a little tighter. And I believe I used 8 colors instead of 10, and I only did 4 rows instead of 8. And then once the ribbing is long enough, all I did was crochet the 2 sides together so that it was in a round. And then I picked up stitches just like I did on the body of the jumper in white. And I believe I picked up 44 stitches, so a little bit more than 1 per row. Then I made a slip stitch, chained 2, and started half double crocheting, and I switched out from the 3.5 hook to the 4.25 hook that we used on the body of the jumper. And I'll add all the increases into the pattern in the description, even though again this is not exactly a tutorial, but the sleeves turned out pretty good, so and this is how all the pieces ended up looking at the end. For the back, I just made a square because I didn't want to add any shaping to the neck because the back should be a little bit taller than the front. I'm not really showing it in depth because again, this isn't a tutorial, but I just quickly turned it inside out and then crocheted all the pieces together. I wanted to do the shoulder and the sleeve at the same time, so I crocheted together the shoulder and then I slipped in the sleeve there. So the sleeve should be right side out, but the body pieces are inside out. And here's the neck hole. I'm not happy with it at all. I think it's like the worst part of this pattern, which is why this is not a tutorial. And then even after I fixed it a little bit and I single crocheted around it 2 rows, I still wasn't happy with it. So and then I made some ribbing with a 3.5 millimeter. That was 6 stitches in order to try to fix it. And to be fair, it does look really cute flat, but it looks kind of funny when you try it on. So basically, final thoughts. I really like the design, but if I were to do this again, I would make it a lot longer, I would make it a little wider, and I would make the neckline a lot deeper. If you want to try and make this, I'm not going to stop you, but I'm not exactly completely happy with it. So when I actually do put out a pattern, it's going to be better than this. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, even though it wasn't exactly a tutorial, but I hope you still enjoyed it. If there's anything you want to see from me, leave it below in the comments. Please like and subscribe. And if you ever make anything that you see on my channel, please shoot me a DM so that I can see it. Okay, bye.